Hey everybody, this is Dominic Siciliano, and welcome to the final episode of season 1 of the What's the Benefit podcast. This is a culmination. It's the great episode. We interview my friends and now business colleagues, Molly McCoy, who is a senior director of growth markets at Priority Health, and Rob Walters, he's our liaison or sales rep for OLFO at Priority Health, because, as I'm sure you've heard, Benefit Profiles is the newest general agency officially for level funding for Priority Health in the state of Michigan. And this is an important moment for me personally. All Benefit Profiles, Tammy, Lena, and all of our employees. 20 years ago, I started at Priority Health in the Priority Medicare department alongside my good buddies, Lenny Brucato, the Dominique Brandon, many of you who know in the marketplace, and to come full circle and be able to represent Priority Health in the marketplace and the group space is a huge, huge deal. It's a huge accomplishment, and it's incredibly exciting. And in this meeting, what we discuss is we introduce Molly and talk about Priority Health in general, her role, how this GA agreement came about, what she's excited about with both the agreement with the GA, but also with the product. And then we deep dive with Rob, who's a veteran in that level funded space, and he's our go-between. He's our day-to-day contact, and we talk about all the cool stuff involved with not only the level funded product with Priority Health, but also Priority Health's networks and some of their neater plan designs. So I think you're going to love it. My encouragement to anybody is if you listen to this and you're intrigued and you're just still nervous about level funding, please let me or Colin come out and talk to you about why it should be part of your quoting this fall. Without further ado, Molly, Rob, welcome. So Molly, thank you so much for being here. Do you mind talking about your title, Senior Director of Growth Markets, what that means, and then we'll talk a little bit about your history. I admire your career, and I want to talk a little bit about that as well, but thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Dominic. Yeah, Senior Director, Growth Markets. What does that mean? Growth Markets at Priority Health is really everything under 500. So if you're an employer group that has 500 or less employees that are participating in your health insurance plan, that means that you're being sold your products through the team that reports up through me. So we've got large group in there, we've got small group in there, and as you know, optimized level funding as well as one of the key products that we have to grow our market.
Outstanding. And you are located in Southeast Michigan, in that area of the world, correct?
Yes, I am in Clarkston, Michigan.
Love it. How long have you been with Priority Health?
So I've been with Priority Health for over 5 years. I originally was responsible for the East operation for Priority Health for both sales and client experience. And we expanded into a statewide approach, which is when I went to become the Senior Director of the Growth Markets for Priority Health. But I've been in the business since the late 80s. I like to tell people, if you're doing the math, I was 12 when I started. And I did start over in Grand Rapids. I'm a graduate of Aquinas College, go Saints, and started my career in the ancillary world. Really spent the majority of my career in the state of Michigan, all over the state, and with multiple types of lines of coverage from ancillary through medical. As well as working for a GA myself, and spent a little bit in Chicago and Milwaukee too.
Wow, and I admire your time when you were at the GA level. I remember when you were there, and I admired what you did there. I have a good friend named Raymond Dewey, and he's an agent in the market, and he said he credits you for teaching him the ancillary business. So you are also, the audience doesn't know this because Molly's she's very humble, but many people talk about Molly as a legend. She sold the Michigan Manufacturers Association MetLife product, and you crushed it for a long time. And so the reason I pointed out is, I admire her career. What was the onus for going with Priority Health? Was it just an opportunity? They reached out to you, you reached out to them. I know you certainly love the company, but at that part of your career, what attracted you to Priority Health?
Yeah, truly, I was not looking. It was one of those situations where I was happy doing what I was doing. And a friend of mine back from college who is at Priority Health reached out to me and said, "Hey, would you ever be interested?" And she started describing the position, and it was Diane Wolfenden's position.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Well, no, what happened to Diane?" And
Yeah.
she said, "Oh, Diane got promoted to vice president." So I'd like to refer you to it. And I have nothing but respect for Diane. She is truly one of the best in the industry that we've ever
Yeah.
had. And I'd always had great respect for Priority Health and how they were always innovators on the cutting edge, trying to do things different because the status quo just isn't working in the health insurance industry. So it
Yeah.
was an exciting opportunity presented to me when I wasn't looking. And sometimes that's, when those best kind of marriages occur.
Yeah, and I think Molly, on a personal level, obviously being a general agent, I felt when you and I first got to know each other, I was like, this is a person who understands me as a GA, but also you've kind of been small market, large market, ancillary, medical. That is for agents who are listening. If you get a chance to spend time with Molly, she's very, very real. And it's really cool that you were able to bring that experience to Priority Health. And also, how great is Priority Health being in Southeast Michigan to have another alternative? That must have been a neat opportunity for you as well. I mean, we all know there's just not that many options. And that's what I'm excited about with BPI is bringing, to our agents who don't work with Priority Health necessarily right now. Um, I just, that was very attractive to me. You talk to us like you really do understand what we're dealing with because you've been literally in my shoes, which is really really cool. And I think that bleeds a little bit into the GA concept, Molly. Right? I mean, this is a new thing for Priority Health. You've all never done this before, so I think agents might be curious, like why now, or or what went into it. It wasn't something you snapped your fingers. You all were very, very prudent about that decision. I mean, this is going on a year and a half now. You and I have been discussing this. So, can you give some background there?
Yeah, great question. Priority Health did pilot a GA concept just in the southeast Michigan corner of the state, and it did go well, but it was very limited in scope and what we were allowing for that general agency to accomplish. But there was definitely thoughts that this could really help us grow. So our team, our internal sales team is amazing. We really do have an incredible small group sales team, and we like to call them small but mighty because there's only a few of them, and they're covering the entire state. We know that we have the best solution for employer groups out in the market, and we can't get that distributed out there without expanding the way that we are making that distribution happen. So when we tested the GA concept in Southeast Michigan, we saw that a little window into a peek into what it could be. So we thought, well, what if we found a couple general agencies that were like-minded with Priority Health, that had similar, integrity, service models that were all about putting the member at the center and taking care of our agent community? What if we worked with them and collaborated to expand our reach and get the Priority Health message and the Priority Health solution out there available to more employer groups? And then, Don, you and I got to meet, and I got to know
Yeah.
you and your team, and your reputation is stellar. I mean, we absolutely wouldn't be partnering with an organization that didn't have the integrity and work ethic that was in synergy with what our own brand is. The breadth of the relationships that you guys have in the community is incredible. And that coupled with the hard work of the team that like Rob Walters that are here at
Yeah.
Priority Health are going to help us compound our ability to meet those our overarching goals that we have for growing the footprint we have for optimized level funding in the state of Michigan.
But number one, that means a lot to me. Thank you for saying that. Um, Also, I mean, we've been doing this a long time, all three of us. You have to like trust the people, right? I mean, we have a contract. You and I have. We all have done the right stuff. It's about as good as the people signing it. What about your background, having been at the GA? Did that come into play when you were negotiating internally, when people were like, whoa, like internally when you all were bringing it to, you had proof of concept a little bit, but did you have to kind of say, hey, did you have to explain the concept internally a little bit, or was it pretty easy?
I have to tell you, it wasn't that much of a struggle. We have a senior leadership team that is very open minded, very open to
Wow.
ideas, suggestions to bring our concept to the market. You're right, though. My background, having worked for a general agency, was very helpful because I lived it and I saw the need to expand, boots on the street and get the message out there. As long as you're partnering with the right partner, um, sky's the limit on how far we can grow. And I do believe that BPI is the right partner for Priority Health for expanding our OLFO footprint in the state of Michigan.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I want to tell you that I've told you that a million times, but thank you for trusting us. I'm super excited. Talk a little bit about the OLFO. I always say that too quickly. OLFO. You've been kind of over it now for 5 years. It's been your part of your thing, right? So, in general, I think it's an awesome product. Um, why are you excited about it?
Yeah, I got to tell you, I didn't get to be responsible for this product until December of last year, and it's really exciting to
Oh,
me. I've
okay.
had awareness of the product, and back when I was working for a general agency, knew fully well what the product could do, and what a great solution it is. It's a brilliant concept when you consider what is available for small groups in the marketplace. So you basically have the ACA platform that the carriers that are participating on it are filing their plans, well over a year in advance as far as what they're going to be offering to the marketplace. The rates are the rates are the rates. You've got member level rating. There isn't a lot of flexibility in there. So bringing optimized level funding to this market segment provides that ability for something fresh, something different than what is built and canned, well over a year in advance. It gives those employer groups an opportunity to kind of dip their toe into the world of self-funding. They might be sitting there thinking,
Yeah.
well, geez, I know our group runs well. Our employees do such a great job of taking care of themselves and getting their preventative work done. We are a well-running group, and because we're participating in ACA filed rates, we're basically part of a pool, right? We're getting pricing based on how the entire population across the state is running, but we feel like we're doing a better job of managing that with our employee population, and I'd like the advantage of that through my pricing. And that's what optimized level funding does. It gives those employers an opportunity to be a part of risk sharing, but really only the upside risk. They're not responsible for any kind of
Yeah.
downturn in their risk. So, really, literally no risk other than the opportunity to potentially have a little bit of their premium paid back at the end of the year if things are running well.
And
And if a turn happens, it does, and especially if you're a small employer, you could have, one big event within your population based on how small your group is, and that could have a profound impact on the
mhm.
overall experience of that group. And if that were to happen, we still have the fully funded ACA platform available to those groups. It's the same plan design offering. I don't want to steal Rob's thunder. He's the expert. He knows everything inside and out about the product, and he's going to share that. But we have that ability to go between those two platforms without too much disruption for the employees and what their
Mhm.
experience is with the health insurance company.
That's amazing. And just thinking about that, Molly, we're going to get into it with Rob. The plan designs, the networks across this lower peninsula, such a great opportunity for. What's cool about OLFO is level funding. So some agents are still reluctant. So that creates an opportunity for agents who are aggressive to go out and win new business and or folks to retain business, so it's really neat as a GA to help agents win. I think that's, you all are always looking for partners who are like, hey, I want to go with Priority Health. Landing the plane, when I started my career 20 years ago, and I started at Priority Health, Priority Medicare. It's really neat to come full circle and be partnered with you all again. It's actually, I mean, I get emotional because I love the business, and I think those of us who've been doing it a long time, not only do you get a chance to grow together, but you become friends, and it's been a pleasure. I've told my wife, like, you and I ran into one of you all had some awesome kickoff meetings in the beginning of the year, both in Detroit and Grand Rapids, and just spending time with you. I felt, my mother was my mentor, and I was like, gosh, I go, it's just too bad. I bet you all spent time together at one point. I was like, man, it was pretty cool. So I just really appreciate the opportunity. It really means a lot to me and to my staff. I think it's just really, really, really cool. Anything that we didn't cover that as we rotate over to Rob that you'd like to add?
Yeah, I want to touch on something you just said about, agents that haven't tried it yet. There might be a little bit of a fear factor there, like this is so completely different than what I'm used to. But that's the beauty of us bringing in you, Dominic, and your team. I don't want the agents to feel like they have to be an expert in everything. You are. Rob is. This team is here to help any agent out there that's got employer groups in that small employer group space that are looking for an alternative that could potentially reduce their premium. This team is here to help and be the experts and um, walk them through the whole process. And I'm confident they work with you on one group. They're going to say, oh, why was I afraid? That was not as hard as I thought it was going to be, but
Yeah.
dang, it was really great to have Dominic and his team and Rob and everybody there to help me. We're here to make it easier so that we can bring this opportunity to your employer groups and we can provide the best experience for them, because we know that whatever we do as representatives of Priority Health is going to reflect on you, the agent that has recommended Priority Health. We know that your reputation with your employer is in our hands when we're stepping into the conversation. And we take that very seriously, and we respect the fact that you've given us that opportunity, and we won't disappoint you.
Well, Molly, I mean, the fact that you're using GAs shows, I think, Priority Health's always been, I think, agent friendly, very, very agent facing, and really, quite frankly, thought you all listen. I think I think agents who never worked with you, and there are some, they'll find if they try it, like the ease of use, the service level, and the fact that you're treated as a partner. That's who Priority Health is. I mean, I've known that because I've been in Grand Rapids. I worked at Priority Health, made great friends there. But that's a huge differentiator, and the fact that you are taking this step, I think, shows the market. I would want to make sure, and we're going to get to Rob, but I want to make sure, I didn't ask you this, and you'll say this, but we are there if agents want us, but you don't have to use a GA. We're not exclusive. It's not like I come from the old school days where you had to choose an MA. That's not what this is. This is, if you would like to use the GA, you can. If you don't want to, you can work directly with Rob. That's not something we covered, but I'm sure you would mention that. In addition, working with a GA does not affect rates or commissions or all that. You still have your relationship with Priority Health. We should be an add-on. So education, ben admin, service on the back end, reporting, helping with renewals, all those things GAs do. For the audience, if you want to learn what our role is, you can talk to Rob or me. We'll put all that up at the end of the podcast. But Molly, thank you so much. That was really good. Anything else? Did we? I think we covered it, but please, she's not going away for the audience. She's still here, but go ahead.
Now I'm going to sit back and listen into the expert. You've got the absolute expert up next to speak to with Rob Walters. I learn something new every time I hear him, so I'm excited to hear the rest of this interview.
Thank you so much. Okay, Rob Walters. So for the audience, Rob and I met when he was at CAM Administrative Services. That was years ago, my man. That was 8 to 10 years ago now. A little
Yeah, like 2013, 2014, something like that. Yeah.
So back then, BPI was in top. We were in business. We were an ancillary GA. We were connected by some agents who are friendly, agents who worked with Rob forever. And CamAds was a level funded TPA. Rob, do you want to talk? So I wanted to get in the medical space, and there was just, Priority Health wasn't really working with GAs at the time. Blue Cross certainly had done what they had done, and there really weren't options at that moment. Um, Talk about your role. I outlined your role. I think of you as our rep. You probably have more of a defined title, but you're our liaison for all things level funded at Priority Health. But do you mind talking about what your role is now at Priority Health, but also your background, where you and I connected?
Yeah, sure, Dom. Yeah, Dominic and I met back in, like I said, 2013, 2014, when it came administrative services. We had rolled out our level funded product and we were looking for additional distribution channels. And we struck an arrangement, and I think we even wrote a few groups back then. And then Cam Administrative Services was purchased by Priority Health in 2019, and that's how I landed here. In terms of where we, how this product evolved at Priority Health is we rolled it out in December of 2020, and have been doing great things ever since. The one thing about working with Dom is that he has a lot of knowledge of the marketplace and the agents, and also level funding, and doesn't have apprehension about it and understands how it works. Because level funding is really basically old-fashioned medically underwritten insurance. In today's environment, we've been over 10 years with the Affordable Care Act with member level rating, and you just get what you get based on how old your employees are and how old their kids are and how old their spouses are. Level funding is a whole different ballgame. I like to say, and Molly kind of alluded to this earlier, is level funding allows employees, or employers rather, to participate in their group's good experience, whether that be getting some money back or getting a better
Right.
renewal than you get being in the barrel with all the bad apples in the community rated setting.
Yeah. What is specifically is your role? Number one, thank you. What's your specific role?
My role has kind of evolved. I'm client and sales service executive is my title. And it used to be a lot of service, and now it's a lot more sales. But as I said, my roles evolved. At first, I did everything that was level funded, except run quotes. I helped with renewals. I helped with groups transitioning from fully insured Priority Health to level funded Priority Health, and then of course I did all the new business. Today, my roles evolved. Stacy McClure's team of account executives has taken over the renewal and the ACA to OLFO proposition. But I still get involved from time to time with renewals when people ask questions, or somebody needs a favor, can we get some rate relief, that sort of thing. And now I'm geared 100% towards new business sales.
To Molly's point, I mean, Rob, you've been doing level funding since it started, really. I mean, 2013-ish, 2012.
Yeah, 2013. When the ACA rolled out, and our risk taker under the old CAM plan, Madison National, said we're out. That led us to transitioning a bunch of business to Priority Health,
Oh,
fully
that's
insured.
right. Forgot that. Yeah,
And yeah, so
I
yeah, it was a
forgot
pretty
that.
big block of business that we transitioned over to Priority Health, fully insured, and that's how our relationship started with them. And then we did some marketing of Priority Health small group business, and also we're in the process of, during that time, of rolling out our own level funded product. And before we moved that business to Priority Health, it was medically underwritten. So I've had experience rating and medical underwritten business for
Long time.
literally
And you
forever.
have some really long, deep relationships with agents that we work with as well. I will say on a personal level, just like with Molly, there's just a very easy connection with both these folks with me. They're just real awesome people. They're used to work with agents. They know how agents tick. Rob, I think your style is awesome. We work incredibly well together. I think we ham and egg it really well. Obviously, you and Colin get along real well, our Southeast Michigan rep. So all that's really, really good. We are very much on the same page. Let's get into level funding. Molly did a great job of explaining it. I think you just explained it. I think most people understand. If those of the audience wants to do a deep dive, a webinar for your staff, Rob and I would love to do that. We love to teach this, the
Absolutely.
idea, the concept of level funding. How has it changed through the years, Rob? Go back, from underwriting to,
So in what I like to refer to as the olden days,
yeah,
we used
which
to
is 10
we used
years
to
ago.
medically we
Yeah,
Yeah, we did 10 years ago, right? We used to medically underwrite using a pen and paper application. We asked everybody's height and weight. We asked what your wife took for blood pressure. How much does your kid weigh? All sorts of litanies of health questions. And then if you answered yes to anything, then we'd come back and say, well, how long have you had that back problem?
yeah,
What's your blood pressure reading? All that sort of thing. It was a super monotonous, very time consuming uh, proposition that in the long run paid dividends for the agent and for the group because we were, when we're able to underwrite a group and select our risk, we can certainly price it much more aggressively than you can in a community setting.
sure.
On the other hand, it was a super huge turnoff to agents. I used to work with a guy that said underwriting gave him hives. So and I certainly understand that, but today underwriting isn't anything at all like what we did then. It's for groups that have 5 or more total people enrolled, whether they be employees, spouses, or children. We can underwrite from the census using a Milliman product called Curve that uses de-identified health information. So essentially, you send in a quote request, we quote it, we send you a rate. That rate's final, barring any significant change in the membership.
So that's a huge, huge difference. So level funding 7 years ago, 6 years ago, was really for agents who wanted to take that work and explanation and pain on. You're going to a 25-person group, you're trying to convince the owner or the decision maker, let's do apps on all these people. And then they go out to get these apps and you come back with 15 more questions. So it's just back and forth. And then at the end, you decline them.
Tons of back and forth.
And you would decline them. And then the agent would be
It
like,
was always it's always the last person that we get the health statement
yeah.
on that. Oh yeah, I'm going in for a quadruple bypass next
And
Tuesday.
that kept
Yeah,
that product.
it was soul crushing.
Right, very niche, right? So that was our agents who had the guts and the willingness to go through that process for that win at the end of the rainbow. But now with this Curve product and the fact that you at Priority Health are really the only level funded that we know about that'll go down that small 5 enrolled belly buttons to underwrite, that
Right.
is a huge opportunity for any agency in the market. And what we're trying to convince agents, Rob's doing it all the time, and Colin too, it's not just for the small agent who's got that personal relationship. It's for all size agencies, admin folks who maybe have a block. I think some people who are internal, maybe doing a call desk sales, they're like, we don't do level funding. It's too complicated. I think you all have figured that part out. We just got to get the word out. Don't you agree?
I would agree, and the process, the underwriting process in particular, is very simple. As in implementation, not much different than fully insured. We don't ask for anything other than a SPD addendum to be signed, which
Right.
all that does is outlines the group's eligibility requirements. Full time number of hours worked to be considered full time, new hire waiting period, that sort of thing, and that's all part of our package. We provide the group with a SPD and an SPD addendum that does all that stuff. So from an underwriting perspective, it's super simple, and implementation isn't really vastly different than it is on the fully insured
But
side.
then now you're doing level funding with a carrier that most people know and love, Priority Health, right? So,
I would say you don't have to explain who we are or where we're from when you talk
right.
about doing level funding with Priority Health.
So let's go into that. So I want to talk about unless you want to add something to level funding, Rob. I don't want to skip over a few. There are some things we didn't cover there, the mechanics of the level funding piece.
Well, one of the things about level funding is, as opposed to fully insured, you get a composite rate as opposed to a member level rate, which makes things easier for groups. Excuse me, makes it easier for groups to budget for their health insurance spend, and also gives them cost certainty going forward. And the capability for the group to understand what their cost structure is super important, and it's a lot simpler to administer on a 25 life group, you literally have, in fully insured, you literally have 25 different rates. We have
Right.
4: single, employee and spouse, single parent, and a family rate.
Huge. And then we have the return of premium, which Molly mentioned, and a lot of other details, but that's what I'd love to do is kind of move us on into Priority Health in this space. So one thing I'm super attracted to is the network. And that's one of the things I learned. And all the agents in the car were like, yeah, we all know that, because if they're Priority Health loyalists, they certainly know your network. But as we got to know it, what I thought was really, really, really cool was a Lower Peninsula coverage for level funding, and the amount of doctors, hospital, all the provider access is incredible. So I'll stop there. Do you want to make a comment, either Molly or Rob?
Our HMO and POS network here in Southeast Michigan is basically second to none. I mean, all the hospitals in the Lower Peninsula participate with Priority Health, including Sparrow, which we just recently added last year. And then also, we used to say 97% of the doctors participated. Physician participation is very difficult to get your arms around, because is it doorknobs, or is it actual people on the ground? But the vast majority of providers participate with us. We find, and Molly would probably echo this, is that when we do disruption reports, very rarely is there much disruption, of any, if they're coming from another carrier to Priority Health. Maybe the occasional specialist here or there, an urgent care or something like that. But typically, if they participate with any of the other providers, insurance companies in Michigan, they're going to participate with Priority
Not
Health.
only that, but the HMO thing, some agents are still wary of HMOs. HMO is not the HMOs of my mother's day. Certainly, her Blue Care Network at GM, like talking about here's your closed network. I mean, talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. Our HMO network is as broad as our PPO network in virtually every fashion, and it's an open access arrangement, meaning that in order to see a specialist in network, you don't need to get a referral from your PCP, which helps with our effortless experience with Priority Health. I always tell the story about when I broke my collarbone. I got an X-ray, called my doctor. I was with an HMO that will remain nameless. Called my doctor. They said, "Oh, you have to come in." I went in, showed the doctor the X-ray. He says, "Well, you have a broken collarbone. You need to get surgery." I tried to get a referral, just over the phone. Didn't work. So I ended up spending $30 in 30 minutes, and
Yeah.
actually more than that, certainly in time. But with our network and our open access, it makes things a lot easier for people to deal with. So basically, you could say our POS and our PPO act kind of like or POS and HMO rather act kind of like a PPO, except you have to name a primary care doc, because you have the same access to specialists that you would in a PPO setting. And let's face it, you can't just walk in off the street to a cardiology office and say, "Hey, I want a workup." They'll throw you out on your ear, because you need to have a referral from a doctor to see from a primary care physician, typically, to see any sort of
And
specialist.
look at this network in the HMO side. We have Ann Arbor, we have Helen DeVos, we have all the key centers of excellence in Southeast Michigan. You have really good access across the state. So I would feel comfortable with my family. But if there's a group that says, "Hey, we do want the access, the ability to go out of the state," cool, we can do POS in this space.
Correct. And then they would have access through the Cigna National PPO network.
And if we have children traveling, going to college, we can accommodate that in the HMO or the POS side as well.
Correct.
To me, and then let's talk about the partners networks as well, or the partners concept, just a little bit, which I thought was pretty awesome as well.
So we have a couple of tiered networks. Often people say narrow network. It's not a narrow network. It's a tiered network. Southeast Michigan Partners and West Michigan Partners. West Michigan Partners features all of the Corewell facilities along with Holland Hospital. Southeast Michigan Partners, of course, features the Beaumont/Corewell facilities along with DMC, St. John Providence, Basically, everybody but McLaren and Henry Ford, from a facility standpoint, is in that. And the way that works is that if you seek treatment through a tier one provider, you're going to have lower out-of-pocket costs in terms of copays, coinsurance, and deductibles. Tier two is the entirety of the
Right.
HMO network. So you still have access to all the doctors that you would have in the HMO network and facilities and hospitals. In addition, the only difference really is that you'd have a little bit higher exposure on the out of pocket. So you may, rather than have a $25 office visit for a primary care doc, you might have a $50 office visit for a primary care doc. I always say that people can be very emotional about insurance, about their health care and where they go and what it costs. But if you can save, I would say if you can save $50 a paycheck in your employee contribution, it's not so painful to have to pay an extra $25 the 2 times you go see your PCP.
I love those products, by the way. I love them. And I think, I don't want to be a sneak preview, but I think there's more cool ideas like that coming from Priority Health. I've seen this, I'm going to the events, and I'm pretty stoked about that type of stuff. I mean, look, we're all of us in this fall looks like it's going to be a rough fall, right? We all know that there's increases in the ACA space. The ability for agents to pull levers like that. Yes. Does it take more education? It sure does. That's our jobs. That's why our clients hire us, to look at level funding, look at the partners products. I mean, that's and the fact that you all keep coming up with cool
Right,
ideas is great.
in the partners project, the partners products rather, you're not always going to be able to please everybody from a provider standpoint, but you will please everybody from a contribution
Right. The
standpoint,
prices are
because
lower.
when you can lower the price anywhere between 6 and 12% from the standard product, it's a pretty good feeling for the employer, because typically they're going to be able to mitigate any rate increase that they took before, or have a lower cost than their pre-renewal
Mm-hmm.
rates. So it's a great opportunity, and it doesn't leave, unlike a narrow network that is kind of a take it or leave it proposition, like either you're
Right.
in or you don't have coverage. If you're in tier one, great, you have a higher level of benefit. If you're not in tier one, you still have access to the entire HMO network, and the out of pocket for both track towards each other. So if they do go out of network, or I shouldn't say out of network, in tier two, if they go in tier two, then that tracks toward their tier one expenses. So it's really a win-win all the way
Yeah.
around.
All right. So you'll hear us talk about that constantly this fall. All right. So wonderful. We talked about the network service. Yes. Check, check, check. You also do a nice job, and you educated my team on. I want to talk about HSAs and then other value adds that I thought were pretty cool as we were learning.
Yeah, one of the things, one of our mantras at Priority Health is, as I said before, is effortless experience. And one of the things that we try to do in every bell and whistle that we have, value adds, if you will, is to help the member experience, help provide them greater access at lower cost, and knock down any hurdles or impediments that they might have to seeking care. Now, in the HSA world, a lot of times if people don't have the money to put into an HSA account to cover those costs, then when they have a claim, it's just bad insurance. Oh, I have this $3,000 deductible and I never get there, and I have to pay for all my stuff myself. Um, what we've done on the HSA and small group is we have coverage for chronic conditions, so such things as heart disease, diabetes, asthma, depression, anxiety, some of those types of things. The IRS allows us to provide coverage ahead of the deductible with either copay or coinsurance for testing and for medications for those types of conditions. So what that allows people to do in the big picture is there are over 100 prescription medications that are available to people with chronic conditions that are on an HSA that they can get ahead of the deductible with just a copay or coinsurance. And what that does for us and what it does for the member is it allows them to maintain their health if they have a chronic condition, so that a little problem doesn't become a big problem. And this is all about the value. One of the things that really add value to the member experience for those folks that are on HSAs, because the last thing we want is somebody to not get treated or not take their meds and then end up in the hospital. That is certainly a bad experience for everyone.
I love that. And you all do embedded deductibles, a little lower than the market. I think we should mention that.
Right, we do on our small group, or our deductibles, anything 3,000 or over, the deductible is embedded, which kind of takes the sting out of that larger deductible. The other thing is there aren't co-pays after the deductible other than for pharmacy.
Right. Big deal, really big deal.
And a couple of our other value adds that I think people find that can be very helpful for them is our mobile app member portal that basically gives a person an inside look at what's going on with their health insurance. It can provide an ID card. It provides all the coverage. You can also go in there and see what things will cost based on where you're at with your deductible. Opportunity for a person, if they're getting a procedure, to be rewarded is there as well. So if they use a lower cost provider for something like an MRI or a knee scope, they can be rewarded up to $250, depending on the procedure that they have done. So that's a great opportunity for people to be better consumers. I always say that the funny thing about healthcare or health treatment costs is nobody knows what anything costs up front. You go to the pharmacy and you hand them your card and you just kind of close your eyes and hope for the best. But if you go to the gas station, you know what the price is before you even drive through the driveway. It's just super bizarre to me. So the cost estimator allows people that really have an inside track and help plan for what their costs are going to be. And I think what that can do for people as well is it can help them kind of take the fear out of what the cost is going to be, because once you apply the network discount, things aren't as expensive as they are on the retail level. So people will go, oh, well, I could get that done for $200 as opposed to thinking it's going to cost them $12,000. In that way, they're less reluctant to avoid having services done that they need to maintain their health.
For me, I don't know if I'm an insurance agent, whether I'm in a large agency, whether I'm in a tiny agency that's kind of just utilizing every agency has their strengths and weaknesses. I believe small agents traditionally have gone to level funding because they are always trying to be a little different, and they're always trying to work a little harder and try to differentiate themselves. Larger agencies bring a slew of the resources, and this is not the broad brush, but in my opinion, Priority Health level funding is a fit for all agencies in that 2 through 50 market in all spaces in the Lower Peninsula, including Sparrow, including Lansing. If you are not showing it, and I think in this environment this fall, I think if you're not showing it, working with it, I think you're putting yourself in a spot where you could get caught, another agent could show it, or you're losing an opportunity to win business. Rob, we talk about this all the time. I think the flag that we're carrying this fall is give it a try. It's not, like Molly said earlier, you'll find it's not that much different. We can help you in very simple terms. Priority Health has great pieces to explain what level funding is, how it works, what to expect. And what's neat is if you do have a bad year with level funding, the reality is the swings could be higher. So you go into level funding, to Molly's point, you're kind of out of that pool. You're kind of on your own merit. And we know that a group of 30 or 3 or 35 is not credible. So sometimes you could have a really bad ongoing experience and your renewal is going to not be great. But with Priority Health, you can go right back in that ACA pool. What do you want to say a message of encouragement to agents who've never tried it? The Priority Health side, if you're not using Priority Health for both fully insured and level funding in the state of Michigan now, I think that's a mistake. I do. I mean, we're talking about a statewide carrier now. It's not Priority Health of when I started there, where we were in West Michigan only. Okay, this is a statewide product. But beyond the priority side, the level funding side, Rob, what's your encouragement there?
I agree with you, Dom. I think, try it. One of the things that sometimes people have said to me in the past is, well, this isn't a long-term solution. And I would say that is not true. We have groups that were under the old CAM plan that are still with Priority Health that transitioned over. Um, because underwriting does wear off after a while. But I will say this: the renewals for level funding are typically not as stiff as they are in the fully insured world. We're generally like in the trend area, 6 to 9%. And I know trend is like the Loch Ness monster. Nobody's seen it, but everybody knows it's there. Um, and the so the longevity that a group can have is a little bit incumbent on how they run in terms of having large claimants or large pharmacy utilization with expensive meds. But the vast majority of ours, to that point, the vast majority of our groups renew and are offered a renewal. Probably 95% of them. We don't broom groups very often. So while it may be a little more difficult to get with level funding, it's a great place to be because it can give you longevity. It gives those groups an opportunity to maybe
Yeah.
share in their good experience, whether that's through a better renewal or through actually getting money back. Um, but it can be a long-term solution, and employers love it because they get out of that rat race of the member level rating. And for an employer that has an aging population, the rate increases for older employees is significantly more than it is for younger employees. The difference between a 29-year-old and a 30-year-old is about a point and a half. The difference between a 59-year-old and a 60-year-old is
In the
3%.
ACA
It's
space.
3%
In
on
the
a
ACA
much,
space.
yeah, so the ACA space in a much bigger
Yeah.
number. So it can be a great long-term solution and provide more stability than you'll get in the ACA world. In the ACA world, it's a straight community rate. So you're going to take what you get, whether you have a dollar's worth of claims or 10 million.
So I also, to piggyback that, you always think, like agents say, well, what's an ideal group for level funding? Well, certainly it's a healthy case. How do we know it's healthy? Used to be we had to do apps. Now we just do the curve tool, which makes it a lot easier. But what I find is the
Right.
young ones, you think, okay, I got this landscaping case, a great case for cam ads back in the day, actually, right? You used to love that landscaping.
Right.
I got this
Yep.
I got
Oh, yeah.
10 young men. Well, sometimes the ACA is almost cheaper in a weird way, sometimes, oddly enough.
Yeah, because those
Yeah.
guys are so young, the rates are
Right.
really low.
But it's actually that 35 through 50 average age, even higher with very little claims history, that we find is a perfect fit for level funding, oddly enough. Um, so you brought up a really interesting point there. The other thing is, too, is if you're an agent who really likes, there's agents now who are really starting to become more creative. And if you want to get someone kind of, let's say it's a growing group and they start to inkling toward, hey, how do we get even more creative? How do we crank up those deductibles, go HRA, or maybe we want to try even a little bit more self-funding down the line? Level funding is a great entry into that space. You get some experience. You get to see what the actual claims experience is. You get to encourage people to use preventive and maybe affect claims. So you get to participate a little bit more in the level funding side. Yeah.
Right. Right. A group can tell if they want to be level fund. It would be, ultimately at some point be self-insured in the truest sense of the word. And if they're good level funding and they grow to the point where they can move to regular ASO business, they can
Right.
do that. One of the things I like to hit on is what we've done for agents that I think this is good for agents that do business with Priority Health but don't do level funded business, is that our plan designs on level funding are identical to our plan designs on fully insured, including all the policy provisions, which includes being primary on auto, which is kind of unusual in the level funded space. Some plans don't cover auto at all, and some plans cover it on a secondary basis. So if you already sell Priority Health, you don't need to learn anything about plan design to sell level funding, because our plan design is the same whether it's fully insured or level funded. The HMO 1000 is the HMO 1000 regardless of whether you're fully insured or level funded.
I love that point too. Okay, we're kind of coming to the end, Rob. It's what you and I would do. Landing the plane. Is there anything you want to leave? A message of peace?
I would just say this, is that every group that you have that has 5 or more people enrolled and you think they might even be a decent risk, is quote them level funded. you will find that probably half of those groups will get a quote back, and it may or may not be less than the fully insured rate, but it gives you something to talk about, shows that you're on the ball, and it plants a seed for the future with that group that if it doesn't work out this year, it may work out in the future. But I think people need to be sure to quote level funding, because you don't know what the medical history holds with that group. But typically, if they are even demographically decent, their rate is going to be competitive with the fully insured.
I love it.
So my essay here is to try it, and don't just pick a couple of groups that are, tough cases and send them over to Dom and go, well, here, try this group here. We've got a guy that lives in Florida. He doesn't really work there, but he's a cousin of the owner, or whatever the case might be. Send some legitimate groups that are good prospects, and take a look at them, because I think what you'll find is this can be a viable solution to a lot of people's woes. And as Dominic alluded to earlier, this fall is going to be tough. Rate increases are high, and just a little quick math for everybody: an 8% savings is a whole month's worth of premium. So don't just disparage. Oh, it's not even 10% savings. It adds up, because when you're looking at saving that kind of premium, it can be a
Yeah.
big deal.
Thank you so much, Rob. It's great working with you again, man. It's been fun. Even
Yes,
if you are
always.
a hockey guy.
Thanks for having us.
I mean, there's a lot of folks that way, though, but I'm a basketball guy. So, Molly, anything to add as we say goodnight today, or goodbye?
I'm so excited to see the results of this partnership and this relationship. I think it's going to really help us expand, getting really truly what I think is the best solution out there to more employer groups, make it more available, make them more aware of it. Priority Health is a company that really cares about the member. We're looking at whole person care. We are looking at what the member's experience is. And when we say whole person, it's just the member. It's everything around the member. It's their family, their environment. We're looking at ways to improve on everything that impacts a member's ability to get healthy and stay healthy. So come on aboard the Priority Health Green Train. Work with Dominic and his team. Rob's here to assist. We're excited.
We are excited. All right, folks. What I'll say is, if you would like to learn more, Rob and I, Colin, the team is available. We will be in market. We're excited for a great fall, and thank you so much.